Today I want to talk to you guys about the Aeneid, and this was a book that very much surprised me in how much I enjoyed it, and very much surprised me just how good it was. Because on its face, it doesn't really seem like something I would enjoy. I'll explain exactly why in a second, but Virgil's just such a good author. I mean, it's just unmatched in skill. I mean, the only people that rival him are perhaps Dante, Shakespeare, or Homer himself. At least what I've read so far, those are the names that I put him up there with. So it's a marvel to read this and just be so moved by something. And I'll start getting into exactly what the Aeneid is if you don't know about it, because it's not really in the curriculum of at least my school system. I don't want to say forced to read because I did enjoy it, but I read the Odyssey when I was in school and I enjoyed it. I really liked it. I thought it was a really cool book, and I just never went back to it. But the Aeneid was something I always heard of, and I always heard it was really significant. I always heard it was something that really was sort of Rome's version of the Odyssey, their own epic myth, their own epic tale. And epic poems are so interesting because they kind of come from a time that is something that's hard for us to fathom, because when we want to learn something, we can just look it up. When we want to learn something, we could go read it in a book, or we could find it in a myriad of different ways. You go on social media, you could just ask AI at this point. But the epic poems existed in a time where it was really impossible to pass down messaging, to pass down guidance, to pass down wisdom and philosophy and a sort of collective identity. And that's really what they served. And it's so fascinating to see this oral tradition. It's so fascinating to see like this wisdom passed down that we can really learn a lot from. And perhaps that's why I enjoy epic poems so much. And in terms of the Odyssey, in terms of what Homer wrote, it's really about heroism. It's really about becoming a great hero. It's really about what it takes to be a good hero. It's about, devoting yourselves to others, and it's an individual journey. The Aeneid is much different because it's much more focused on a collective identity, a collective sort of movement. It's putting your country before yourself, and it's that sort of blood and soil or kind of traditionalism kind of values, which I don't necessarily agree with that much. I mean, there's an element of everything that I agree with, but I kind of shy away from those kind of ideas because I think the collective, if you put the collective before the individual, then the individuals suffer, and we don't see the greatness of individuals. And that's really my personal belief. So going into this and knowing that context, I didn't think I was going to like the Aeneid. I didn't think it was going to really strike a chord with me. I was really more so reading it to see why it inspired Dante so much, why it inspired so many other people, and why it was held in such high esteem. And through the course of reading this, I was pleasantly surprised because, like I said earlier, Virgil's just so good. I mean, unmatched in the way he writes, and I'm reading a translation of it, so I can only imagine just how great these actual stories are when read in its original source material. And that's something that I'm going to dedicate a lot of time to in the future. I really do want to learn Tuscan so that I can read Dante in its original form, and I really do want to relearn Latin so that I can read Virgil in its original form, because it's just the poetry is tremendous. And there's a lot of moments that stuck out in this story, and there's a lot of things that I thoroughly enjoyed. In fact, the ending, if I explained it to you, I'm not going to spoil it because I want you to go read this yourself. That's the whole point of this channel, is that I talk about books that I enjoy reading, and I talk about things that inspire me so they can hopefully inspire you. And I want you to go out and do it for yourself so that we can both become better. We can both learn something from this. And I think it's a very important sort of process that I try to put forward. In some ways it's good, in some ways it's bad, because I can't talk in as much detail about what I'm trying to talk about. I'm holding stuff back to not reveal it, but it's really interesting because if I told you what it was, I don't think you would agree with it. But it's something on its face that I would vehemently oppose if you just told me what would you do in this situation. But Virgil just does such a great sort of masterclass in winning you to his side and winning you to this sort of collective identity. And I think perhaps the best moment in this is very early on in the story, where Virgil has Aeneid meet with this Carthaginian, the queen from Carthage. I think her name is Dido, or I think it's definitely Dido. Dido or Dido. I don't know. I'm gonna go with Dido because it sounds better. But he meets with his queen, falls in love with her, gets married, and all sorts of things. But the gods tell him that it's not his destiny. The gods tell him that he cannot be happy. The gods tell him that he must sacrifice his own will in order to found this great new civilization, of Rome, and it's his duty, and he must do it for everyone else. He must sacrifice his own happiness for the sake of this collective identity. And it's really fascinating because really what Virgil is trying to do is Octavian tasked him with this monumental task of creating a story, of creating a mythos for Rome, and he takes this character from the Odyssey that's a very minor character, and he makes this whole mythology about it, and he makes this whole story about it takes your absolute dedication to the state to make the state better. And if you make the state better, then you make the world better. And on its face, ideas I don't believe with, I don't agree with, I don't believe in, but for whatever reason, Virgil's just so good at writing that I found myself at moments deeply moved by this, and I found myself in moments extremely inspired by this. And there's all of the same elements of Homer. There's all the same sort of story kind of development and the same kind of tropes and the same kind of things. It does read a lot like that epic poetry style. So if you've read the Odyssey, if you've read the Iliad, I think you'll enjoy it. I'm not saying they're completely similar, but there's a lot of the same elements. It does read in that sort of style, and yeah, I had a lot of fun reading this. I'm probably gonna reread it again at some point in the future. Like I said, in the future, I do want to go to the original source material, the original non-translated version, the original Latin, and get a taste of what it has. But yeah, here's a story that really inspired the entire mythos around Rome, and reading this story really gave a whole lot of context, a lot of the philosophy, a lot of the inner workings of the empire, on why the Roman Empire was so successful, because the soldiers read this book, or the soldiers heard this story. I doubt they read this book, but they definitely heard the story. They definitely were inspired by the greatness of Rome. The entire story is all but a reference to the future, all but a reference to the present. And I can only imagine being a Roman soldier and hearing this from the bard, and being inspired by this great sort of mythical version of this prophetical civilization that I'm a part of and that I get to sacrifice myself for. And perhaps this is the best piece of propaganda. I don't know if that's really the best way to say it, because it kind of defines the entire sort of cultural movement, this entire sort of collective identity, what made Rome so fearsome in its day. But it's just, I really enjoyed reading this. I think you'll enjoy reading it as well. If you have not picked it up yet, I really urge you to, because it's just, reading it, I know why we still read it. Reading it, I know why it's still important, and you can always find that in a book of this sort of weight. And yeah, can't wait to read more Virgil. Can't wait to reread Dante and go back into Dante. And now I know who Virgil is. Now I know sort of his characteristics and sort of the things he was about. So it'll be much more interesting to see Dante's take on it. And yeah, with that said, I love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much. Peace out. I'll catch you in the next one. I promise you I'll make more videos. I don't know why. I've just been lazy the past week or two, and I don't know. But yeah, I'm back. I don't know how frequently I'll be making videos, but I'll keep going because I know you guys enjoy this, and it feels good to be back. It's feeling fun again, and yeah, that's why I do it, because I like talking about books. I like to read, and you guys like watching it, so it's a great experience all around. But yeah, with that said, have a good rest of your day. Peace out. Catch you next time.